This is gonna get real personal and deep, but it has to be because this is my story. I was trying to avoid being home because home wasn't somewhere that I felt safe. I honestly felt good about working out because of the hype, because of the environment that was created, right? Everyone's happy. No one is judging you based on your cultural differences or your language barriers at that. People were just focused on your effort.
The body dysmorphia that you experienced post 2023 prep and how it was really tough for a little while. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
This is the one part I wasn't sure if we were going to get to. There was things that was in my personal life that
What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm joined by natural bodybuilder and the fitness program specialist at the University of Toronto, Steven Hsu. I'm very excited for this conversation, having first met Steven when he and I were both competing at the WMBF Ontario in 2023. In our conversation, Steven shares how he first found his passion for fitness and bodybuilding, his views on natural bodybuilding versus enhanced bodybuilding. He shares the personal challenges he faced following his 2023 competition season, his philosophical ideas revolving around bodybuilding, his future bodybuilding plans and goals, and so much more. This conversation is absolutely loaded with value and insights, and I know you're going to love it. So, without further ado, let's dive into it. Your last competition was the WNBF Ontario in 2023, and that was getting close to 2 years ago. It's the end of May 2025 as we're recording this. So, it was almost 2 years ago. How's training and everything been since then?
honestly, no complaints. Moving in the right direction. I think it was clear from that season, um, and the feedback that I got from the judges and from the pictures was that, my legs had a very good size and potential. It was upper body that, especially back, that I need to focus on. So going into the off season, the emphasis on back uh, has been very very intentional, and to be able to have your coach tells you that you only need to train legs once a week. Um, I take that any day as a compliment. All my buddies calls it the bodybuilder's dream, right? A gym bro's dream just to be able to train legs once a week. But that session is always hell, like that session is always, you go in, this is your one opportunity to get better, and there's no second chances, right? You got to execute every set, because one thing I love about bodybuilding is there's no cheating, right? There's no cheating your way to success, and I think that's why like there's so much mutual respect amongst people who compete. It doesn't matter if it's natural, non-natural leagues. I think in natural there's even more mutual respect because we choose to go with this route, and people don't understand what it takes as a natural bodybuilder or even as an enhanced bodybuilder to be successful at what they do, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's great that we're coming together, we're catching up, and I'm going to really enjoy this. So thank you as well, Sam, for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited too. I've been excited about this for a while. I can already relate to a couple of the things that you already mentioned, like finishing a competition or competition season, getting some critique from the judges or your coach, which is, from my perspective too, is really helpful because it gives you something to
Mhm.
focus on. So I felt the same way after my competition season ended too. And it's interesting that you learned that your lower body was ahead of the game, potentially ahead of your upper body even. So it's nice that you got a chance to learn that, to give you something to focus on. But I also can relate too. You mentioned that your coach suggested like, hey, you only need to train your lower body once a week. and it's like, hey, you got one chance, one session per week to like basically give it your all. I've kind of done some things with my training too that have involved less volume for
Mm,
certain movements. And I think one of the benefits that probably that at least that I found has come with that is because you have fewer opportunities, so fewer sets or fewer days of the week to hit those muscles really hard. It's like, okay, I got, X number of sets, maybe only a couple number of sets for my quad, so I better make it count, right? And that's
yep,
almost like a skill set. It's not like
yep,
you're in a place where you have so much volume you can start giving reps away, or kind of getting lackadaisical, because at the end of the day, you only have so many opportunities, so many sets to make it count. So I can see how that would be it must be very intense to just have one training session for your lower body to be able to really, really make it count. That being said, I want to talk a lot more about what your off season, your improvement season has been like since that competition ended. But first, I would love to get to know a little bit more about your background with lifting weights and fitness, and where your interest in natural bodybuilding came from and how it developed over time. So, how did you first start getting an interest in lifting weights? When did you first start lifting?
lifting weights, grade 9. Um, my high school had a weight room program after school. And at that time, I had just relocated back to Canada. I live in Ontario. Mississauga is the city, but I had relocated back to Ontario from Taiwan. That's where I was raised, from age 2 to 12, where I played mostly competitive Little League baseball. So baseball was the sport that I started off from, and coming back here to Canada, the one way that I knew how to make friends was through sports and activities. And so it was natural for me to do what all the other guys was doing, which was hitting the gym, right? And I used to weigh like, I must say like around 240, 250 pounds in high school. So I was a big guy. So my drama teacher, he had recommended me to go play some football because he was the football coach. And so he put me on the O line. He kind of like introduced this new culture that I didn't have in me, to adapt kind of through this cultural transition or culture shock, so to speak. And that's how it all got started, in terms of fitness. But I was always fascinated with movements ever since I was a kid. Uh, and I just can't stop moving. So why stay in the office, right? When you have the playground of Iron Paradise.
I couldn't agree more. Okay. So you got into sports from that age, and it sounds like in addition to being enjoying being active in the sport itself, it also helped you connect like from a social standpoint too.
Yeah.
Like develop a sense of like community almost, it sounds like, especially at that age. And then so from there, that was kind of your gateway into lifting weights. There was like a school, like a high school gym, and that was kind of connected with the sports that you were into.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
It's so funny because it was like a classroom that was like pimped out into a gym. And I remember there was only a number of exercises that you would do. And so everyone would start with bench press because you gotta start with bench press. And the way that we structured our workout was so much fun. Like we would start off at a plate, and we would start off from like the weakest guys, and they would go up, hit their rep. Once you hit your rep, it's almost like you advance to the next stage, right? And they keep adding weight until everybody falls short, and whoever is the strongest for that one day, you get bragging rights for bench press. But then you go to squat, and then you go to deadlift, and you gotta finish with some easy bar curls. And so every session, we used to hit the exact same workouts. And I tell you what, those intensity, like I admire myself sometimes for the intensity and the effort output that I used to put into those sessions. And they're great for the soul. They're great for the soul. It keeps you out of trouble. It releases all of your aggression and all these anger. Like especially when it comes to emotions, we have good. We as a society, we always say like good emotions, bad emotions, but I think all emotions requires an outlet, and I think at that age of my life, it was a great outlet for me, and so it was
Yeah.
easy for me to stick with it.
I can definitely relate to that. It's like lifting weights has a therapeutic quality to it. And like you mentioned, I think it's a really positive outlet, a good place to put your energy levels and also whatever you're feeling at the time. Um, because it's somewhere to put it, but also you get a big return on investment on it too. It's very productive as well. Is that what you is that what you initially liked about the weightlifting? There was the element of like the competitive element with your friends, getting stronger and stronger, getting some bragging rights, having the therapeutic element to it. Or what do you think was the reason that you really started to develop a liking or an interesting in it?
I love that you're asking all the right questions. So this is gonna get real personal and deep, and I think, but it has to be because this is my story. Um, and the story with fitness for me at the time was I was trying to avoid being home. Like I didn't want to be home because home wasn't somewhere that I felt safe. Home wasn't somewhere that I felt happy or I felt like, I could rest. Home was somewhere that, was giving me a lot of stress and anxiety as a kid. And so I looked for every program possible to not be home. And at the time, um, I honestly felt good about working out because of the hype, because of the environment that was created, right? Everyone's happy. No one is judging you based on your cultural differences or your language barriers at that point of time. People were just focused on your effort, and something about that united us. And me growing up playing competitive baseball, it's always about the team, right? It was always about the team. And so those energy attracted me more. And so I always tell my people, right? Any of my clients, any of the trainers that are coming up, I tell them, I said, like fitness gave me my life. Like I had very little purpose. I had very little goals and dreams and admirations, and it was working out. It was working out that allowed me to say, you know what? I want to be good at football. It was working out that made me realize, you know what? It's actually healthy being strong. And it gave me so much entertainment as well, right? Like, because I want to say I first really got into working out. It was my buddy, his name's Patrick. He also went to my high school, and he and I went to the same university, and he was the person that said, you know what? You don't have to work for strength, right? Let's train for aesthetics. Let's look like Rich Piana. Let's look like Bradley Martin, right? Those were the main guys at the time, and I genuinely loved, the Rich Piana vlog. I remember like I used to do his like fasted 20-minute bike ride every day, watching his vlog. Those were such great times. And I think, you know, it's great that, science is developing and people are almost like without having to go through these experiences, going straight into training for maximal return on their effort. But there's something fun, in my opinion, about this development and your ability to stay open-minded as you learn more information and knowledge is your tool to become successful.
I love that. So you found that lifting was like a safe space, somewhere that you could
Mhm.
kind of go to for comfort. it was similar to the sports that you're playing. It was something that helped you like grow a sense of community and kind of experience a sense of camaraderie with other people that you're potentially lifting with, or at least other people in the gym. I definitely get that. There's certain times when you're like in the lifting space where the environment, the atmosphere can be really positive. Everyone's in there, everyone's trying to get better, everyone's trying to get stronger. So it's a pretty positive place. And so you got into it and started to develop a deeper interest. And it sounds like not just the community element, but also getting better at the lifting itself, not just to get stronger, but also the aesthetic element. And you mentioned that you got into like vlogs, like so YouTube vlogs like Rich Piana. Definitely know who that is. It's funny when I'm trying to think back of the people that I followed. There was definitely people that I followed when I first got started too, or I think when I got started, YouTube wasn't huge yet, or even I was really young when I started lifting. It might not have even been a thing yet. But
Mm.
some of the earliest like influencers that I followed were um, like Mike Thurston before he started doing all the other stuff that he's doing now. He was like one of the OG fitness
Yes,
influencers kind of.
yes.
And I really liked him too because he was very like he articulated things really well, and I thought he had a lot of really good advice, and honestly I still think he has a lot
Mm.
of really good advice. But also I on the stream of guys like Rich Piana, I really liked at first before I learned a ton more about him. I really liked Mike O'Hearn because of like the mindset, right? Like it's like same with Rich Piana. They have a certain mindset of like let's get after it. Let's put everything
Yes,
on the line.
yes.
Let's
Whatever it
let's
takes.
yeah, let's build. And I think that is something that something really good that we can take from guys like that. So was that kind of your inspiration to develop to get into like not just lifting weights, but to get into the aesthetic element or the bodybuilding element?
So I think that came in different phases. So back in 2013, that's when I started training for aesthetics. But I was training more so for those beach body. I wasn't really training with the intent to be on stage wearing bodybuilding trunks, so to speak, because to be honest, at that time, I did not even envision that. It wasn't until 2016. That's when things got a little bit more serious, because now you're starting to bench 2 plates and you're starting to squat in well into the 4 plates category, and you're deadlifting, somewhere in the ballpark of the 400 plus pounds, right? And so they say the 1,000 pound club. So once you start to get into those areas, you start to really feel what true progression feels like. And like first 3 years, I want to say it was just like a honeymoon phase, like you're getting all the benefits and rewards of all your hard work, and your metabolism is still so good that you can measure your protein in the amount of junior chickens you were eating. Like you get away with those things during those times because you believe that's all you can do given your circumstances, and I think people don't talk about that enough. Sure, we all love to have a morning routine, evening routine, day routine, right? But how many people could actually afford to do that? And given your circumstances, what are the steps that you are taking, right, to become the better version of you? Never mind anybody else. Like, how do you just stay focused on you? And that's one thing that I'm really grateful about coming from my era of lifting, because we didn't do it for the gym selfies, right? We didn't do it for the 30-day challenge on your Apple Watch. Like we did it because world events was discussed amongst gym bros, and friendships and brotherhood was developed. And in the world of so much hate and conflict and, you know, so much divide, it feels good, genuinely. Like it feels good to have a place where everybody come together and we all try to uplift each other and there's no shortcuts.
I hear you. Well, it's interesting too. I'm just thinking something that you mentioned earlier was kind of like lifting weights, the gym, sports too is like a safe space for you.
Mhm.
And like you mentioned, like home wasn't the best place to be at the time. And I think a lot of people that, and I'm not sure what the specific, your specific context was, and you can elaborate it on it more if you'd like, but like if it was rough at home, I think a lot of people wouldn't have gone the route that you went. Like I think there's other like less fortunate paths that you can take when things aren't going so well at home. Like I mean, people develop serious problems when that kind of those kind of things go on. But I think it's interesting and like really cool from my perspective anyways that you ended up falling into lifting weights and it ended up being a super positive outlet for you and something that you could actually grow in a set of skills and that you could eventually grow and develop over time. And I definitely know what you mean about like eventually you start to like see really significant progress. Like you mentioned, like getting into the 1,000 pound club. I'm benching over 225. I'm deadlifting over 400. I'm squatting over 3 plates or 4 plates or whatever. Then it's like, okay, I got a pretty serious foundation. Like what's the next thing I'm gonna I'm gonna start working towards. So what do you think it was? Do you think it was just kind of like you happened to find the right thing? Like it was just almost like I don't want to say luck, but what do you think it was that kept you that led you into finding a positive outlet in your circumstances that ended up being like lifting weights and eventually bodybuilding? What do you think it was that led you into that versus some kind of a negative outlet, which I think that a lot of less fortunate people end up finding themselves in similar circumstances?
Well, you said it right. I think I've definitely had my fair share of experiences in the past with other routes, right? Like with self-harm, with drug addiction, right? And all of these things I feel like require somebody to live through it to genuinely appreciate how big of a privilege it is to be mentally and physically at peace, right? And I'm not talking about like being successful or whatever that means to each our own subjective opinion. I'm just talking about being mentally peace at peace, as in like there's nothing wrong with you right now, uh, and physically there's nothing wrong with you right now. Like people take that for granted. So I think it's that. But two, like to answer your question, Sam, I never thought I was gonna be a bodybuilder. Isn't that crazy? Like I always wanted to become one. Like, and I would live my life as if I was one. But that's all I wanted to do. Like that was my pursuit. That's what drives me. That's what made me want to wake up early. That's what made me want to, you know, grind, right? To get my certifications, to get my ongoing education, to continue to develop myself as a fitness professional, right? And I think these things, the certifications doesn't require you to do so. Your clients doesn't require you to do so. You're doing this because you want to give back and you want to learn, not just for others, but for your own sake as well, right? And I think it's so important that we stop thinking in terms of return. And sometimes we just gotta do what we gotta do, right? Whatever feels right. I feel like because my coach Cliff, he had recently just gone onto Instagram and mentioned a post about tricep kickbacks, about how dumbbell kickbacks, a lot of people, you know, slam on it for having very little tension at the starting position, right? But hey, he finds that exercise to work well for him. I find that exercise to work fine for me. And guess what? We have those exercises in our program. And I actually look forward towards it, right? That's the fun part, right? Like you want to choose the exercises that work towards your goals, which is always your weakest link. Sure, but have some fun while you're doing it, right? You get one life, so have some fun, right? Like you don't have to always keep the hood up and as if like you're doing something. Just be relaxed, right? Just be relaxed. You can drop that like bodybuilding persona as much as closer to the prep, right? You can't help but, conserve your energy for meal prepping and just checking in with your coaches. But other than that, I'm happy. Like I'm such a happy lifter. I'm inside the gym, right? I'm making myself useful wherever I am.
There's so much there. I love so much of that. One of the last things that you mentioned about like the how Cliff was talking about the dumbbell kickbacks and how it is important that you do things that you enjoy when you're lifting weights and what does feel good from being in the trenches and experiencing it yourself, even though sometimes that might be what one side of the internet says isn't
Mhm.
optimal based on science. I'm the same way too. Like dumbbell lateral raises, for example, one side of the internet says that they're not really worth doing because the resistance profile is the same thing with the dumbbell kickbacks. There's no tension on the bottom of each rep, and there's ton at the top, which isn't optimal. But over the past couple of years, I've been really, really liking them, and I feel like I finally figured out how to do it after like 20 years of lifting almost. So I really like them, even though science says, well, maybe you should just do cable lateral raises or use a machine or something. So I definitely get that. The other thing that I really like too is you mentioned like peace of mind, and I think you were mentioning like the lifting weights. It gives you peace of mind when you're doing it. It gets you up in the morning, maybe the progress that you make from it, and I really, really like that. I think that's especially nowadays too, where it's almost like in some sense, I don't want to be like to overly sensationalize this, but it almost is kind of like the age of anxiety where everyone's always worried about something and like material things like you mentioned. So you even mentioned like, you know, like getting rich, for example. Like there's a certain sensation from lifting weights that I get too is really relatable, where like when I'm lifting, I feel a certain amount of peace of mind, which is like priceless. It's like worth more than so much other stuff, so many other things that you can experience. Okay, so when so it's 2016, that's when things really started to get serious, when you really started to seriously notice progress as far as like strength levels and whatnot. So was this was the time where you started to think about competitive bodybuilding, or did that come a little bit later still?
It never came to me until I want to say 2022 August. 2022 August. And before
Okay.
that, I honestly used to just train for leisure. Like I would train so hard for leisure.
That's
And
amazing.
it wasn't until 2022 August that's when I had the opportunity to start the current job that I'm in. And for once, as a fitness professional, I finally have work-life balance. Let that sink in, right? Okay? Because, like, as fitness professionals, especially when you work in like corporate gyms, right? You're up at 5. You're at the gym training clients 6 to 9, 6 to 10. Then you have nothing to do from lunch till like 4 or 5 p.m. Then from 5, 6 p.m., you're hustling and bustling till 10 p.m. and you go to sleep and off you go again the next day. And that's if you're successful. That's the fortunate ones. That's the fortunate ones. That's the ones getting paid. And that's who I was. But, I was never in a situation where I'm like, it's realistic for me to pursue that until 22 August. And I remember sending a close friend story at the time, tagging two of my buddies that I knew was going to compete with me at that moment. I don't know why. I don't know why, but we've been working out since 20. One of the buddy we started working out 2013, 2014. The other buddy we started working out 2016. And so I was like, something about that just felt right. So I sent a check-in photo to them and I said, I'm 1 year out. I'm 1 year out. And at that time, I remember both of them were kind of like, they were like, you're looking great, this and that, but they weren't talking about their own participation. It wasn't until when I officially started with Cliff in December of 22 that the whole thing started to really play out different. Um, that's when I actually learned what it means to be bodybuilding naturally. Like before, sure, like I read my books, I read my articles, I did my workshops, I went to seminars, I got my extracurriculars, but I didn't know it was done like this, right? And so that introduction into bodybuilding was so rewarding because I realized that 99% of people can do it the same way that bodybuilders can do it, right? Given the knowledge to do so. Most people just don't know. They want to do it, they don't know how to do it. And I think that is a skill acquisition that is so important that lacks in like our overall educational sector. But that's a whole thing that I will not get into because I'm so disappointed in that. And but I do my best within my power to change that, and that's all I can do. And so I'm proud for standing by that, and that's why I kind of just want to throw it out there. If you any of you guys are listening and you're wondering if your coach is worth it or not, if you're even thinking about that question, it is worth it for you to get a coach. If you're even thinking about that question, it's worth it because you definitely don't know uh, anything until you've tried everything. So it's like what I'm pretty sure is one of the coaches from 3DMJ. He mentioned about it in the podcast about a great ball player needing a coach, and without that coach, that ball player is just a ball player. Same thing with bodybuilding, right? So I feel like this whole journey almost like worked itself out without me knowing, and that's the best part about it. And when I when I like fully taken in that I was ready, there was no hesitation. Like I was so calm, I was so at peace. I just knew that I need to execute everything, right? Day in and day out and stay consistent. I somehow knew everything that I needed to do for the entire prep, but not after the prep. And it's so funny, Sam, because I thought, this was going to be such a smooth sailing season. Everything was going to be so great. And then once both of the shows are over, I I lost track. I lost the motivation. I lost the drive. I just for 3 months I couldn't properly train because my mind was just off of things.
I want to ask you I want to ask you a bunch more about that period after those two shows ended and what you experienced. Before that, how did that first prep go with Cliff?
Very good question. I think it went so much easier than I thought. I really thought this was gonna be some like, dig in the demons, everyday fasted cardio experience. Turns out no, like we didn't start doing cardio until I think I was 2 weeks out from the first show, and that's when we started to introduce like low intensity steady uh, s- cardio, and this whole experience also with the water intake misconception. There's so many people that would look at you and ask you, "Oh my God, like when was the last time you drank water?" And we kept it at between 8 to 10 liters the whole prep through, and so I would say majority of the prep was much easier than I thought. I did have two travels between the prep, and one of them, I had a flight to Cuba, and I didn't know that my body would inflame so much and hold so much water after a longer flight, so to speak. Um, there was a little bit of a hiccup because we thought that like, I just had a crazy cheat meal and now I'm not going to make it for the show. Turns out, 2 days down the line, I just trust the process and continue pushing what I was doing. The water finally, settled, and all of a sudden I looked ready. And I remember at that time I was 6 weeks out, so I was really, really stressed when Cliff was like, "Oh my God, like what is going on?" But other than that, no surprises. Um, yeah, I think that's all I could really say. It's such a smooth experience, so little like drastic changes. We were just consistent. It was just week in and week out, doing the same things, listening to the body, taking the feedback, and he's got a great eye. He knows what needs to be done at what phase. It's almost like he's the whisperer. Like he knows what you're thinking. He knows what you're thinking, and when you're in prep, that's your best friend. That's your best friend because he knows everything about you, right? That nobody else can really comprehend or understand or even be shared with these type of information without growing concerns, right? Because we all understand that client and coach conversations, and no, it was great. I for my prep in 2026, my intent is to go back and to the drawing board with Cliff. Um, and it's actually a great timing that you reached out to me because um, starting from next month, we will actually be starting off with some off-season building first, right? Probably start off with a mini cut, clean up the diet a little bit, and then do some growing. And I'm really excited for 2026. So right now it's just keeping the head down, right? Keep the intensity high, right? Eat with intent, move with intent, and stay injury free. Stay away from injuries. That's one big thing, right? So gotta do your stretches, right? I always tell people gotta do your stretches. Never skip out on that because that's the one thing that you regret not doing when you can no longer do it.
To give a little bit more context too, with that 2023 prep, so it went pretty smooth and it was easier than you thought it was going to be. How long was it? What's the duration? Was it a year-long prep? Was it a long one?
So the goal was that we were going to prep for 10 months. So we started in December, and initially I didn't have a show date in set in stone. Like I didn't really care which show I competed with, and I think that was a very healthy mindset going into it because it allowed me to really trust the process. And I always say that because sometimes it's hard for you, especially like I want to say like when you're so far out, right? When you tell most people you can't just eat whatever they're eating because you're counting macros. They're like, "What? Like what is it that you're doing?" Right? They still don't even get the full spectrum of like what they think bodybuilders typically look like when they're so far out from their competitions, right? So there was definitely that. Um, I would say the experience was very gradual. There was skill acquisition phase. There was weeks where we would push a little bit, right? There were weeks that we would refeed and, give our body a rest. And there was never a dull moment. Like, I never knew, right? From after sending in the check-in, I never knew what it was going to be. But I know if nothing needs to be changed, I'm doing something right, right? And if things are changing really fast, well, I chose Cliff, right? So I believe in his decisions. And I think that is also very important, right? Once you choose your coach, right, there's no point in stressing over these plans and these, protocols because you chose them for a reason, right? You chose them for a reason. And if you were only going to trust your own instinct, then, why not try self prep, right? Because at the end of the day, the reason why I invest in a coach is so that I can remove that stress away from me. I just gotta focus on hitting my meals, hitting my sleep, hitting my training, right? Hitting my posing, right? There's so much that goes into being a natural bodybuilder that already requires a lot of time and effort and money, right? To just get involved with that I think you really want to make sure that you're doing it right the first time.
Yeah. It's having from my standpoint too, having someone that you can give the reins to, that you trust and that has tons of experience and that can make some of the big calls for you, like making adjustments, for example. It's invaluable because it frees up so much mental space and it provides peace of mind, and then you can focus on, like what you noted, doing the action steps that they prescribe. So if they make an adjustment, all you have to do is make the adjustment, whether it's with training or maybe activity level steps, or maybe there's some changes with training volumes and that sort of thing. It's more straightforward having a coach. I know that's the same from my perspective too. I've done preps that were self-coached and that were coached, and the ones that were coached are were infinitely better than the ones that weren't coached from my perspective. You
Hmm.
mentioned Adam earlier, and yeah,
Yeah.
man, he's a it's
What
crazy
a
that and
beast.
there's some athletes that are just incredible, not just as athletes, but also as at coaching themselves too. It's very difficult to make objective decisions about
Agreed.
yourself when you're in those latter stages of prep. That's where having a coach can be so helpful.
Agreed.
What did you find that you enjoyed about the prep itself, assuming that you did find something or have things that you enjoyed about it?
Wow. What can I say? Structure. Something about that structure. And I was never used to eating so much meals spread throughout the day consistently with the amount of protein that um, essentially what was prescribed to me. And so at first, you know, when I was going through the recomp phase, I didn't realize I need to be eating all this food. That's a comfort that I really enjoyed because I'm a foodie. I love food. My natural set point is higher because like food is so much of who I am in my culture. And I don't mind being more, I guess, invested when I'm in prep. I don't mind longer preps. I don't mind, these structured diets because I have enough varieties within that for me to enjoy every single meal, right? I must say, like, there's not one meal I did not truly enjoy until I want to say peak week. Peak week meals, they're tough. But you're so shredded that like you're just ready, you're just so ready. But they're not it. They're not it. That's the only time when I stopped enjoying my food. And it was all the way up until peak week. So I must say I'm proud and I'm really happy that was my experience because that can't be said for many people. Like I know people that had competed at the same shows that are not even involved in fitness industry today because of how um, I guess how much physical toll and mental toll that they've taken on by being micromanaged, so to speak, in certain aspects of bodybuilding. And I think a coach needs to let its player do what the player is supposed to do sometimes, right? And I don't know that I can only speak for my subjective experience with Cliff, and I would definitely say that that was a very pleasant experience. And I look forward to the second time around because I must say the rebound coming out of it, um, we controlled it. Like it damage control was done, but then I started having some personal issues with health, especially my digestions. So I couldn't really consume all of the protein I knew I needed to get in, and I did not want to um, follow through something that I know my body was not in position for. So I quickly informed Cliff at that time and got medical support and health. Um, and now going back into it, I I'm not gonna lie. I think, and this is one thing I really want to talk about as well as with the conversation with you today. And I would love to know what you and your personal experience is as well, Sam, is like my body dysmorphia, right? And it's so hard. It took me so long to be comfortable in my body again. And by being comfortable, I mean like just wearing your regular clothes, just being okay standing inside the gym. And people don't see it, right? People will still come up to you and compliment you, telling you, "Oh, you look big. Oh my God, you're so strong." All these things, right? But like as somebody who's been working out for, you know, 12 years of my life inside the gym and much more if you consider other strength and conditioning, I feel super intimidated. I want to say for 4 to 5 months after the competition, I just hated my body. I hated that I lived inside this body. And one day it just switched off. Like I no longer hate that. Like I now embrace my body. I now understand. Now I'm healthy. Now I'm healthy, right? It took these time for me to realize I'm healthy now. And despite what we have inside our phone on our check-ins, how we look, we gotta understand like there's a purpose to every different stage of bodybuilding, and there's no skipping different periods, right? The only way is forward, and the stage will be there when you're ready, right? Things that Cliff has said to me personally that had really, really stuck with me because I was I was struggling. I did not know if I had what it takes, right? I did not know if I had what it takes to do it again. But when that feeling came back, I remember I was doing this is not an endorsement in any shape or form, but the Atlantis chest press flat machine where you plate load on the side, the stretch that it gives you, like many people, they put that rubber thing on the bottom. I removed that. Oh my God. I remember I was on that machine and I was doing my first set after being away from the gym for like 4 months. Like I was like, yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready. And that was the moment that I was like, okay, you know what? Whatever I went through was so valuable because now I choose bodybuilding and I
So it's kind
know
of
the cost that comes with it.
so it's almost like in a way that tough patch almost made you appreciate the lifting and the feeling that you get from lifting. Kind of it's like absence makes the heart grow fonder. Is that the saying? Something like that. It's not the best analogy, but it's like to to get to get more context too. And I definitely have struggles that I've gone through after prepping. That's for sure. To get more context from your story, so you finish your last competition of the season. So this is 2023. This would have been after the
September.
WMBF Ontario. Okay, so September. And then from there, can you describe that initial period leading up to the 4 to 6 months where you were like you were really struggling, you're having trouble, like
So the my first show was August 19th.
okay,
And after that show, I was so good. I kid you not. Like I had a McDonald's Diet Coke and I just put the soft serve on top of it. That was my cheat meal. Like that's all I wanted. Cliff was like, "Oh, go on and enjoy a burger." Nah, I didn't want any burgers. I was like, "Hey, coach, send me the plan." Right? Like I was, and I felt like a lot of times this question still occurs in my head till this day, and the question is, was it better or would the results be different if I had just done that one show and get back to the drawing board, do a proper reverse, right? And then transition into off season and then do another show. And I still don't know, but I believe that my experience had taught me that I should first be able to have all the tools and skills necessary to go into a show and come out of a show, right? Without inflicting any damages or any negative effect on me or the lives around me. I think that is my new goal now because it kicked my butt the first time around. And for some people, they're like, well, it's hard. Well, if it was easy, everyone would be shredded, right? That's always my saying. If it was easy, you wouldn't even want to do it because everyone would have it. So something about that, like it ignites me even further. It's almost like bodybuilding had posted this challenge for me, almost like a side quest for me. Be like, Steven, you did great, and your performance was good, right? And you're on the right track, and you're doing all the right things, right? But you were ready for the show, but you weren't ready for after the show. And now, as we speak, I feel like I've taken a lot of notes and learned a lot of lessons from living through life, right? Coming out of the show, right? To the extent where I now feel eager to go again, to prove not to anybody, but for my love of bodybuilding, that I can be a participant. I don't have to just be a fan, I can be a participant. And it doesn't matter where I go because I'm not chasing for the trophy as much as I am chasing these type of relationships that we get to build amongst fitness industry professionals or even bodybuilders because this is such a niche sport. And I always hear this from people online, any influencers will say this to you. Such a niche sport that we all understand what it takes to get there. Sure, we joke about genetics all the time, right? About, us Asians going up always having thick legs, right? African American athletes going up having the most complete package. right? But we know what it takes to get there, right? We know what it takes to get there, and I think that's what I'm there for. I'm there
Yeah.
for the same people that are as enthusiastic, as crazy as I am, to see what's up, right? Almost like a celebration of every gym's most dedicated gym bros come together for a showdown, right? Have some fun.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique and special community. And I'm just making the connection too that when we were talking earlier about you initially getting into sports and lifting in general, that was one of your main the things that appealed the most to you
Yeah.
was the element of getting to kind of form bonds and having a special camaraderie with the other people, the other lifters that are around you, or other people that you're playing sports with. So it's kind of interesting how it's kind of like amplified and gone full circle for you in that sense.
Oh, for sure. I'll
Um,
even elaborate a little bit, sorry, Sam, on that as well, because I think bodybuilding has been a thing as I developed as well as a person, right? So it has really allowed me to realize that having a common interest and goals can unite a community that defies age, that defies race, that defies cultural backgrounds. Like it genuinely brings people together. And it's so crazy to experience that. And for me to be able to now become almost an ambassador of doing that, I think that is the most rewarding as a fitness professional, also competing as a bodybuilder. Because I don't have to be that tough guy walking around. No, I'm the guy that wants you to feel the most welcome, right? But I'm also that guy that wants to make sure the culture that is created inside the space that we train, right, is comfortable for everybody. So that is a big message. I think it's very important for the lifting communities out there.
yeah, I think it's cool too. I think a lot of natural bodybuilders, in particular, or I'll speak for myself. I've I've often felt that I haven't fit in very well with the rest of the mainstream world, and I like having, like you noted, something that you liked about your prep was like having the structure with your nutrition, but learning that you can have some flexibility with it and that sort of thing. I've always been like someone that's been drawn to the same things. Like I love having structure with my training and nutrition and always having something to work towards, whether it's a prep or just like aiming to get stronger and build muscle. And I like the really, really disciplined lifestyle, and not everyone in like my general vicinity is like that. Like I live in like a medium sized city. I grew up in a small town, so there are other people like that, but not a ton of people like that. And I think that the natural bodybuilding community has been really nice for me, kind of like what you're talking about, because it's just full of other people that are kind of the exact same. They find things about this structure and having something to work towards, a drive of just like sticking with this lifting weights thing, the iron jungle for a long time. That's really nice to be able to connect with other people in a way where you understand each other, maybe in ways that it's tough to get that feeling when you're with more of a just a mainstream community. Not to say like my family, for example, they're not bodybuilders and they've never done bodybuilding, but I'm really fortunate in that my family has, as they've got accustomed to me doing my preps and just having been lifting since I was like 12 or 13, they've been really, really supportive and they've grown in their support
Mm,
over time. So I'm really, really fortunate in that. But even so, it's nice to be able to connect on an even a we'll say a different and maybe even a greater degree to people that have actually done the preps too. It's a special thing.
100%.
Something I want to ask you a little bit more about, because I think this is really, really important because a lot of people have felt this themselves in the past, or they will experience it in the future, or maybe they're experiencing right now is again the body dysmorphia that you experienced post 2023 prep and how it was really tough for a little while, months after the prep. Can you can can you elaborate on that a little bit more? And I know you mentioned you got to a place where you snapped out of it, right? You tried that chest press machine, you felt the stretch, you probably got a gnarly pump, and like training got fun and exciting again. But what was it? So I'm kind of reading between the lines here and what's specifically happening, but I'm assuming the show happened and there's a rebound. You gained weight after, like we typically would after a competition. But was that what you really struggled with? Was the weight gain? Was it more weight gain than you planned for? Was it like looking at yourself in the mirror that was a trouble? Was it how you felt? Was it your energy levels? Can you elaborate on that in particular?
For sure. So this is so important because this is the one part I wasn't sure if we were going to get to, but very, very valuable nonetheless in terms of my experience. And that was there was things that was in my personal life that that required attention, that required time and effort from me. And these things were kind of like thrown to the side as part of my prep because in my head I justified putting this to the side by saying, well, I don't have energy for that, right? But when you realize that the show is done and there's no more, oh, I'm prepping, so I don't have energy for that. There's, it's almost like the best, I guess, metaphor I can make is why nobody wants to be told what to do because they know they have the power to do that, right? And a lot of times, knowing that you have the power and you're just not doing it is a very demeaning or a demoralizing reality. And so, the part of me realizing as I was gaining all these strength and energy, and my satiety level starting to, come back to the level that they're used to. Now I'm left with my personal issues that I've been put aside for the past 10 months. And, you know, when they go bad, you know, it makes you even less motivated to want to deal with these issues. And they piled up because the life continues. And so it was also a personal growth moment. And so my experience wasn't so much about my physical, it was more so about my mental. And I think that's where I I don't use I see a lesson learned in every decision made, but I remember at that time having this conversation with Cliff. I was telling him, hey, like, all of these things that you're telling me, like the training, the food, like I'm not doing anything. Like I'm not hitting any of these targets. And I feel like from week in and week out, I'm disappointing you, right? I feel like I am not accomplishing things, right? And I remember Cliff telling me at the times like this, you just gotta slow down and pick it back up. And at that time, I was like, I didn't see a way out. I didn't see a way out. And so I needed some change and I needed to go back to the drawing board and really say, you know what? Maybe I really do have priorities that trumps my desire for bodybuilding, right? For my well-being and also my future considerations, right? So I think that is also something that I believe a lot of people tend to ignore. A lot of times we have real life problems and we go to the gym, right? And we feel good inside the gym, but we finish the gym and we don't actually address the issues that kind of brings us those emotion reactions, and we just eat protein and go to sleep. you know? So
Yeah.
I feel like I keep tying um, mental health into a lot of these physical training aspect because I'm a firm believer in training your mind before training the body. And as someone who navigates through a lot of mental health experiences and treatments and information, I think people need to talk about it more because we're clearly not good at navigating through these circumstances. Because if we were, we wouldn't be asking for help. And if you need help, from what I've learned inside even just the fitness industry itself, you gotta ask questions, right? Because you never know if your question is also somebody else's question. And I think that is so important for people to share amongst each other and learn from each other's mistakes to try and avoid unnecessary routes as much as possible.
Yeah, those are all really, really good points. It's interesting, right? Because lifting and a prep and putting your energy into something like lifting weights to build muscle and then do the really concentrated prep, it's a positive thing. But it's so interesting how we can use it to bring ourselves like hyper focus, but at the same time use it as a way to cover up the other things that are going on in life and to kind of put some things under the rug. And I think that's kind of what you're describing. And I really get that. I've done that before for sure. I've done it. I would say for every single prep to varying degrees. Even my last one, which was my most successful prep, there were still things at the end of my prep where I was like, "Shoot, I actually have to face these life problems now." The toughest one was my 2021 prep. That was my third prep. It was a self-coach prep, and I wanted to push my limits on my own. And this was the hardest prep I ever did. It was longer than I'd ever done it before. It wasn't the longest. My last one was the longest, but it was the longest I'd ever done up to that point. And I wanted to get more shredded than I'd ever been before. And I really pushed myself and I suffered and I really struggled because I didn't have, you know, you were talking earlier about all the benefits of having someone that you trust that you can rely on, like a coach to work with. And
Yeah.
one of the struggles that I faced was not having someone to bounce to get any mental feedback from, to let me know, like, yeah, no, you're good. You're doing all right with your trajectory. You're as lean as you should be. So I was second guessing myself all the time. And it was making me crazy. But anyways, I got to the competition and I did a really bad job of peaking myself because I made some very poor eating decisions as far as food selection, not calories for my peak week. It was food selection. I was craving I was craving really salty stuff, and I was having a lot of trouble regulating my emotions at the time. And so I peaked and it looked terrible. Cliff has used the analogy before that peaking is like stealing candy from a candy store, right? It's like if you get away with it, great. You get some candy, life's better. It's not a huge deal, but you got some candy. But
Yeah.
if it goes wrong, you're gonna go like to the you're gonna go to jail for the night or whatever. You get arrested, you get a
Yeah.
record. That's what I
Yeah.
did. That's what I did for that. And so I can attest that's true. But anyways, I had planned 2 shows for that season. I only did the one because it went so poorly and I was so exhausted and mentally devastated, not just physically. And it was for that exact reason that you described, was I had extrinsic issues that, like, I was questioning things like my career path. It was earlier on into like me starting my online coaching business, and I had successes with it. But at that point, because I'd put so much into the prep, I was having a dip in it because
Mm,
I wasn't able to put the same kind of mental energy into it. I was kind of putting all my cards into one basket, and all my cards into, what's the saying again? I can't even
all
remember
my
what the saying.
all
I
my
was,
eggs into one basket.
you got it, not cards, eggs. I was putting all of my eggs into one basket, which was the prep. But when I finished the prep and it didn't even go very well, I did okay,
Mm,
but it didn't go great. After that, um, it all hit me, and it was a really, really tough ending to. That was like 7, 8 months of prepping at that point. But the
mm,
biggest struggle for that prep for me was just that kind of existential crisis afterwards. But you
I
live and you
also
learn.
I think Cliff had once said it best. He said, "You know what? Like this bodybuilding show thing, people say it gets easier, but it never truly does. You just get better at, knowing what is happening, acknowledging it, and accepting it a lot of times. It's just part of it. It's part of all this experience that you're going to go through. So experience them." And I think that had really stuck with me. And like you said, it's so much of it. It's all extrinsic. It's yeah. If and that's what is so much fun about this sport, right? Because it's not just about you being on the stage when the spotlight is on you, when your friends and family is cheering for you, is after the show, when you've, you know, got all your trophies, got all your, rewards, awards, and now the people that are closest to you are asking you, "Are you okay?" Are asking you, "What can we do to help?" Right? These are the moments that I feel like is the toughest um, from my bodybuilding journey so far. And I put a lot of expectations in myself. And so when people are checking in with me, asking me these questions, a lot of times I can appreciate the love, but it almost served more as a burden than a uh, assistance sometimes, right? And that's definitely something that me as an individual needs to get better at, right? And with repetition, I believe that I can get better in this department. Um, but I think the big lessons here is most people should ask themselves if bodybuilding is even something they should be doing in the first place, right? Sure, it's great to look shredded, it's great to be on stage, but is it worth it, right? And people needs to experience it in order for you to answer it. But I think that's where you have to, as a coach, before you take on a client that wants to bodybuild, you should know the why. It shouldn't just be, oh, the kid can do 20 pull-ups. Why not become a bodybuilder, right? Especially this day and age when lifting is almost glorified. And it's so funny, Sam, that 10 years ago I'd be turning down social events because I needed to get in my workout. And people would tell me to go get a social life. People would tell me to make some friends, you know, stop getting so big. Like I'm East Asian, right? So in a lot of my like family gatherings, in a lot of my previous dating endeavors, I oftentimes get, a lot of, let's say, critical feedback from people saying like, "Oh, you're this, oh, you're that," and I'm used to it, right? My style is not to go for lack of, I guess, feedback. So I get I get a lot of compliments. I get a lot of questions. I get also sometimes people say some funny things, and it's just the way that people are. But for me to oftentimes hear these things, it questions my commitment to this whole thing. Sometimes I feel like I'm the outlier. Sometimes I feel like I'm the not so normal person. But I quickly, through my profession, through my social circle, I'm able to realize all the good that this also brings to me as well. And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me going.
And that must be one of the reasons why for you it's so nice to like you mentioned earlier to have the natural bodybuilding community because sometimes the people around you, and there isn't anything wrong with this, right? But people around you will, as you noted, like ask you if things are okay, how can I help, so on and so forth, that sort of thing. And so that can happen, or you can feel like a bit of an outsider turning down like social events so that you could get your lifting session in. So it feels a little bit isolating because it's different than what everyone else wants to do and what they're doing. But this is why, at least from my perspective, it's nice having like the natural bodybuilding community, because it really shows you you're not alone. There's other people that would rather get a late night training session and then go to the bar, or like go to bed early so you can get up
Mm-hmm.
early to go to the gym instead of going and doing stuff in the evening, that sort of thing. So it's nice to know that there's other people out there that are as crazy as you and I are. There's a decent amount. There's not a ton of us, but I think there's some of us. So if anyone's watching this and you feel that way, you can know that Steven and I also feel the same way.
It's so true. It's so true. And but on that, I think that's where I gotta show some love to a lot of like, and this goes like for me, my passion for bodybuilding extends beyond kind of like the natural, non-natural community. I think as much as I appreciate, you know, guys that are at WBF Worlds, I also appreciate the showdown between Derek and Nick Walker. You know what I mean? Like I'm genuinely fascinated by the sacrifices and commitment these people have to create the ultimate physique, right? The ultimate physique. And I find that us as society, we still judge, right? We still have more judgment in stereotypical men, woman physique structures, right? So when you see a man that is bodybuilding, natural or not enhanced, you're like, oh my God, you're jacked. But it follows with a compliment. It follows with a respect. But oftentimes with female bodybuilders, right, it's so extreme, right? Some people's like would give them criticisms for doing whatever the hell it is that they're doing to their body. They're receiving criticisms. And I've had the opportunity to meet quite a lot of female bodybuilders, and the amount of work that they have to put in, right? The amount of emotional check-ins they need to do as they go through their menstrual cycles, their hormonal cycles, right? It's something that me as a male bodybuilding competitor could never even comprehend or experience myself. And so I think there's a very valuable appreciation for keeping these communities alive, right? Because they're so important, because we should have all the power in our hands to create who we want to be, or how we want to be in terms of our appearance and our aesthetics, right? Despite our sex.
Something that I've been thinking about. I've got two questions that are top of mind that I really want to ask you. First question is, we're talking about how having like the natural bodybuilding community, and for everyone that is a natural bodybuilder or that just really likes lifting weights, that just knowing that there's a community of other people that are as crazy as you are and have the same kinds of prefer to spend their time in a similar way that you do, it's just so nice to have that. I feel like a lot of people just don't know about it, and what's most popular is like it's enhanced bodybuilding. That's what's most
Mm,
popular. It's still not mainstream, but it's a lot
mhm.
more mainstream than like the natural niche. But my theory is, if I think more people knew about natural bodybuilding and just how much potential people have to make progress, like how much muscle a person can build naturally if they just like really, really stick with it and commit to it for a long time. I think that's really surprising to a lot of people. Plus, as we're talking about, there's that, plus it's just like really cool community of people that have similar interests. I wonder what it would take, or how more people could be introduced to natural bodybuilding. Like, I wonder how could it become more mainstream? Because I think it has the potential, or at least that's my biased hope, is that if more people knew about it, they saw the potential, they saw that you can be in a part of a really cool community, more people would want to do it. It's just a matter of they don't fully understand it, or they don't know about it at all. All they see is the enhanced side, and some people really get into that. But I feel like it would be nice if they had the whole picture, which is also, there's this natural bodybuilder thing too. So I don't know. I think about this a lot. I don't know how to get more people into it, or to introduce it to more people, because it still won't be for everyone, and it still probably won't be for the majority of people. But I think more people could get into it if they knew more about it. Have you ever thought about that? Like, about how it could be introduced to more people, and what could be done to introduce it to more people? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm gonna come at you with a very different lens. So my mission is always to inform people that there is a life outside of the gym. And that's obviously tied with my kind of title with University of Toronto, of course, right? So my job is to not only get people into fitness classes and fitness spaces, but more so, what is it that you want to improve upon in your life? Do you want to get better at climbing? Do you want to try skiing, but you're always afraid? Do you want to run? Like, what is it that you're trying to do? Right? And many people, when they first start off, they go to the gym because that's the one place that we can all agree upon that is there to help you improve your physical capacity, right? But most people don't know how to track progress. Most people don't know. There's many things they don't know, right? So they always get stuck in that loophole. Every time they want to get fit, they start off on this cycle of lack of experience and knowledge, and they don't end up succeeding the thing. So every time, the more you do it, the more you fail, the more you fail, the more you feel like this is never you. So they don't end up doing anything at all, because they're like, well, I can't get fit, so I'm not fit enough for this. I'm not fit enough for that, right? And then when you talk about more of a, for example, let's just bring in the boomers, right? You're starting to hit the age of retirement, and you start to blame everything on your age. You're like, I'm 65, therefore I cannot walk, therefore I cannot bend over and pick up these things. And some of which are always valid. But are we asking the question of why can't you perform? Or are we asking the question, why is it an issue all of a sudden? Like, it wasn't an issue before, right? What is it that I haven't been doing that had caused this to be an issue, right? So my belief is always that people should explore more what it is that drives them crazy, right? Because for me, it's that last two reps, when it's lift or die, when it's gun to your head, do you have one more? Those were the moments that I love, Sam. So I cannot say that for, I want to say, 70%, right, of the people that I encountered and trained. I cannot tell them, see what you feel when you feel that, you know how good it feels? I can't share that with them because they don't feel that, right? So if they don't feel that, if there's not a genuine interest in what you need to do day in and day out, then I wonder if bodybuilding is going to be for you, because you're going to get to a point where If it was up to you, your body just wants to rest. It just wants to shut down. There's going to be those workouts that you're going to dig. And if you want growth, it never gets easier. I hate when people think that, oh, once I get through this set, this is just gonna get easier. No, like the weights are, I always tell people, and there's many things that I always share with people because in my work environment, people come in as a, you know, first year frosh student, and then they leave when they acquire their bachelor's. So there's so much mentoring, there's so much sharing information that I'm doing year in and year out that I end up sticking with these, I guess, go-to phases. And that is, I tell people, if like if your workouts you're not having fun, right? Then it's all going to feel like a part-time job to you. And if this is a part-time job, how are you getting paid? Like, are you getting paid in muscle mass that you acquired? Are you getting paid in the aesthetics that has allowed you to increase your self-confidence? Or are you one of those people that spent 4 years inside the gym but always thought you could do it and never hired a coach, and 4 years later you still look exactly the same, right? Like, which one are you going to choose to be, right? And that really comes down to that. And bodybuilding, I still believe, Sam, and like this is a hot take, even though I'm so into it. I believe bodybuilding is a very extreme sport. I think nowadays, with a lot of body enhancement techniques and filters and all these things, people genuinely does not give as much credit for people with good physiques. Like I swear, like back in the 60s to the 80s, right? If you walk around with abs and like, you know, you're wearing your tank top or nothing at all, just with your swimming trunks, people would literally stop you just to take a picture with you. Like there used to be this like whole nother level of like almost like a body worshipping, right? Of muscular bodies, right? Now we want to embrace and accept all body shapes, which, to each their own, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But I believe the online debates of natural and non-natural is just crazy, right? Even for myself, right? Right now, sitting at around 200, 210 pounds, when I train, nobody's gonna come up to me and be like, "Oh, are you natural? Are you not natural?" Right? I look natural right now. But when we get into prep mode and we're 3 months out, we're 4 months out, right? The accusation of, "Oh my God, there's no way you're natural," starts to come up. That's the first thing. Second thing is funny because all of a sudden people come up to you and ask you for advices without any filtering of prerequisites on knowledge or certifications. People would just come up to you because you got a vein on your arm that they desire. They're like, "Oh my God, how'd you get that vein?" Right? So I think it's up to education, right? And this is such a long shot, but I think we need to teach people about the knowledge of macronutrients, and there needs to be a accountability on our own subjective end to want to take care of the body that serves us, right? Because it's not an
Yeah.
unconditional support, right? You got to take care of it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think too, is I think that there's yeah, like when you receive those kind of accusations, when like you're lean and your muscles, the definition and the cuts and the lines between your muscles is super apparent. That's when you start to get those kind of accusations. And I think a big part of it is, like you're noting, is it's like people aren't aware of what's possible naturally. And because they're not aware of it, it's like people have this self-imposed limiting belief that, oh, he's super lean, ripped, and has a lot of muscle. He must be on he must be enhanced. I think that's, like you noted, if people had more macronutritional knowledge, a better understanding of the process and structure that you could adopt and stick to, if people had a better understanding of that, they could try it themselves, or they could get more into like the natural bodybuilder world. They'd have an understanding of the potential you have, and then overall there would be less of those kinds of accusations overall. That's what that kind of makes me think of. You had so many good points in there too. After my initial question about like how is there a way where we can increase the awareness of natural bodybuilding for people that are interested in it, and I want to try to kind of summarize your answer to some extent, and you can correct me if I'm off on any of this, but it's like, I think this is what you were noting, is there's a lot of people, maybe younger lifters, who struggle just to like break through plateaus. They hit a wall, they don't know how to keep progressing, and then maybe they kind of give up on it. It's like, what's the point? Or you have
Mhm.
the older generation that they try to get into it. They've been lifting it for a long time, but they write it off because they're getting older, or there's some lack of understanding there that they could be making more progress, but they give up on it anyways. And this isn't everyone. This is just, these are generalizations, but it's true. I think a lot of these are true. And it's like, for you personally, you do something that you really love is those last 2 reps of really, really difficult sets. And not everyone loves that. And I was just thinking, when you were explaining that, I was thinking, man, that's so true. It's like there really is a very small number of people, I suspect, that actually like that for whatever reason. It's really counterintuitive to enjoy that, right? Because it's actually really painful. It's not the traditional sense of the word fun or enjoyment, to experience like an excruciating amount of discomfort to try to get an extra couple of reps on the hack squat or whatever. It's really uncomfortable, but for whatever reason, there's a couple of people out there. There's some people out there that really love it. And I think that those are the people that would end up falling their way into finding a sport like bodybuilding, like natural bodybuilding. But I think you're right on the money there, where maybe the first step isn't to like create an awareness of natural bodybuilding per se, but maybe like a first step is just to like recognize if you like being in the gym, to push yourself to the next level. Because as you noted, if you don't really want to be there, it's like just a chore. And I think that the bulk of people, from my experience, they fall into that category. It is kind of a chore. You just got to get it done a couple times a week so you can stay like lean, strong, and healthy, just to have a good life, which I think that is a-okay. And you just get 2 to 3 training sessions in. If that's all it takes to, live a long, healthy life, then fantastic. I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but I think that there's another subset of people, like we're talking about, that like that extra bit, that like to be in the gym. And that's, if you don't like to be there, then it's really hard to kind of get to the level of wanting to like compete in something like bodybuilding. It also makes me think too of like a good analogy might be something like, you can imagine playing a musical instrument, and like the piano, for example. If you're growing up and your parents are forcing you to play the piano or to practice the piano 5 days a week, I mean, you'll get better at it. But if you're doing it as a chore that you don't like you probably only have so much potential to get so good at it, because there's that element of enjoying it. You'll probably stop the first chance that you get in that case, versus you take the piano player that's got um, maybe talent, maybe some natural talent, maybe not a ton of natural talent, but ultimately they like to play the piano and they want to be doing it not just 5 days a week, but 7 days a week. They have to hold themselves back from doing it too much. Maybe they might be the people that really, really tend to do best. They become the best musicians, the ones that really love playing it and not doing it as a chore. And I think that's definitely, I think it's true, probably true for bodybuilding. I think that's what you were kind of alluding to.
No,
Um,
definitely for
okay,
sure.
sweet. Yeah, I'm definitely on the same page as you. And I was thinking too, I've had conversations about that before, and I think that that's one of those things. And I don't know what your thoughts are. I'd love to know, but that's not. It's. I've always considered that for myself. Not always, but lately I've come to the realization that I think that's a gift that we're kind of intrinsically almost born with. We find it lifting that we like it, and then we find that we like it and pushing for those extra 2 reps. It's like a gift. It's hard to teach that, right?
I think it's something that most people developed at earlier ages of their development. So I think it's more of a disciplinary training because everybody in general population can tell you one thing that they could drop and change right now, right? And that will create a healthier version of themselves, right? But everybody knows that. But are they going to hold themselves accountable to it, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I also think that in today's um, like influencing world, and this is a new thought that I had from earlier this year, and that is we have so much information that are out there, right? That are fitness related. That people say, oh my God, like we get lost in all these information. But let's be real here. All of these information that have been compared and talked about and advertised even to a certain extent, right? They're not applicable to 99% of the lifters.
Oh man, you're so right on that.
Like, shit, like, sorry, but I'm not gonna, if it's my first year lifting, I'm not going to try and figure out where my wrist angle should rotate towards on the last rep of my bicep curl. No, you should just go and curl. And I think that got lost in transition. And it's so unfortunate that that's the case because you get people that have been in the gym for 3 months, 4 months, and they have their favorite fitness influencer, right? And they're coming to the gym and they're talking about their splits with everybody they see, right? Because they're so eager to grow and all these things. But they don't even understand why they're doing the things that they are doing, right? And there's people that blindly chases for the ego lifts, for the numbers, right? But at the end of the day, none of these things are serving them, right? So they end up spending all this time and effort, and then they feel cheated and they lose faith when what works in the fitness industry is the boring stuff that is hard to advertise. It's hard to have a million podcasts about because it comes down to what is your life. And that's what personal training and coaching and all these things comes in, right? What is your life and what could you do at this moment, forward, onward? What could you do, right? Let's start with one thing at a time. What could you do to better yourself? And that's why so many people say, oh my God, like after I started personal training, other aspects of my life have also changed, right? Because now you finally understand, oh, things take time. But the analogy that I always use is when you were a kid and you look around and everybody else is standing, your subconscious tells you to keep trying and you're going to continue to fall, to fall, to fall. But you're not going to stop trying to stand up. Because if you had at any given moment stop and you're just like, nah, I'm good, right? Then you'll never be able to stand up. And like, I share this with clients because they walk with so little intent and effort. Like they're not even breathing correctly when they walk, right? So I use these things to bring them back to their body awareness. Like there's so much in front of our eyes. There's already so much like sensation, like dopamine overload. Like we forget that there's other sensation as well. And it's fun to explore that. That's why I'm a fan of Pilates, right? As much as people like to, put a stigma around Pilates, I dare you to try one on the reformer. Like you feel things that you never thought was possible. And like I was sharing with a friend that like every time I do Pilates, my feet, like my feet would cramp because of how much stability that your feet is working, right? And these are all links that could be strengthened. And you never know which aspect is going to help you in terms of transferable skills in bodybuilding, right? That's why I like to dip my toes in all these different instructional classes and I guess principles, because there's definitely more than one way to get into this physique. And some people never will. And as coaches, I think people need to set realistic expectations as well, right? If we're out here telling people 90 days is all you need to get shredded, 30 days is all you need to get shredded, then guess what? They're going in expecting to spend 30 days. And it's those people that are almost washing down the quality of services from coaches that are genuinely trying to help people live a more healthy and active lifestyle. And that's where we get all the negative reps, right? So it takes one bad coach to ruin it for so many other people, right? And in the world of social media, who's even looking at certification? Is this guy bigger than me? Is this guy more shredded than me? Does this guy have more followers than my other coach or the other coach of options? Right? Like people are asking the wrong questions. And I think as long as people are asking the right questions, now more than ever, Sam, now more than ever, I believe there is enough resources for anyone that is interested in the world of natural bodybuilding to choose this route. And I'll tell you, I also at one point of my life considered going enhanced, right? And the ultimate decision came down to, am I willing to make those time commitments and sacrifices? That's all it is. That's all it is, right? Because people want to talk about getting big, this and that, but they don't want to talk about doing regular blood work. They don't want to talk about, having to go to physio two, three, four, 5 times a week because you're training your muscle at such intensity and frequency, right? Because your body is able to recover in time, right? And what about your genetics? How are you reacting to these things? Do you have teams in place to take care of your health? Do you have coaches in place? Do you have trainers in place? And not everybody could afford that. And I'm well aware of that, right? And therefore, I didn't choose to go the route that I had explored. But I was fortunate enough that I was already in this industry working as a fitness trainer at the time. And I was able to hear a lot of real life examples. And you'll be surprised, like 95% of the people that are on steroids, that are general population, us lifters, like us bodybuilding lifters, we don't even realize they're on steroids, right? Oftentimes due to their lifestyle and their diet, and first and foremost, the reasons behind why they're doing this in the first place, right? To each their own. But I think if you're going to make all these sacrifices, to me, bottom line is somebody needs to be paying me to be doing this. If I'm paying to be doing this, then I need to have extra support from the outside. I can't be working 3 jobs just so I can afford my coaching and my food and my drugs and just to potentially make it out, because we see all these people making it, like we see C-Bum, we see Ronnie Coleman, right? We see these people, but how many people try to beat them? And do you know those people? Right? So sure, it's great to get competitive and it's great to win trophies and be first place and get placed in overalls, but if that's all you're doing it for, then you better make sure you have some good genetics, right? And you better make sure you have what it takes to go all the way to the top. And there's so many examples of people with talents that lack principles. There's also people who have principles but lack talent, and we don't talk about that enough. And it's unfortunate because I think it pulls in people that didn't have to go through these experiences to go through these experiences, and they're going to be a ambassador of not doing extreme sports like bodybuilder after their experiences. Like recently, one of the biggest name, right? Willie Tennyson, right? He competed in WNBF and he went through the prep with Cliff. And I think that it was such a positive advertisement for
Oh yeah.
natural bodybuilding. And, he's always one of the fitness influencers that I was like, I wonder when he's actually going to compete because he has the build for it. And there was rumors actually on the year that we were competing that he was going to compete, but because he had some like content that he had to issue, the travels, and therefore he wasn't able to make it. And I completely understand because when I was a fitness trainer, I was never able to even be in that position to say, I'm getting my 8 hours of sleep, to say I'm drinking 10 liters of water each day, I'm eating 5 meals a day. Like, I'd be lucky to be able to eat a protein a bar between client to client. That's my snack, right? So for him to wait for the appropriate time in his life to start this process and to do it with Cliff, finishing it off with Cliff, and documenting his entire experiences and sharing his experiences, I think that's what it is about. It doesn't have to be that 1% of knowledge that serves only the elite of all elites. It could simply be, look at me, this is what I like to do. What do you like to do? Figure out your own, right? And I find that to be empowering, right? So these days we have so many different things, right? We have bouldering, we have um there's this new like style of CrossFit. I think it's called like Hydrox. So many people have been talking about it. It's like a tag team, and you're supposed to run through these courses, like whatever gets you going, right? Run clubs, like anything it is to lead you outside, because people develop interest from moving, and through interest, we bond, we build this relationship together, and that's what we need. That's what we need. We need these human to human interactions because the number one lesson and the gift that I got as we kind of like go through this walk down this memory lane of prepping for our first rookie season for myself was the peace that comes with you when you're able to share your experiences with other people that also walk through the same challenges in a different reality. Right? We made the same sacrifices despite different scenarios. That's beautiful, right? That's beautiful. And that's why I want to keep doing this. Not so much about, oh my God, I'm going to look at my next picture. I'm going to focus on how much better. No, right? It's who am I when I'm that person in that bodybuilding trunks again, right? In that tanning room again, in that check-in room again, in that backstage again, on the stage again. Who is that person? That is more of the reason why I'm eager to find out. Because I don't know yet, right? Like everybody says, right? You're going to have a different prep. So I don't know yet. And that is what drives me to get ready for this 2026 season.
It's kind of like you do the bodybuilding prep, you do the lifting, and not only are you shooting for the stage to get super lean, to have a ton of muscle, but you're also becoming better as a person in the process. And that's true for other fields as well. So like you noted, like maybe you're really into run club and marathon running, or like you're really into Pilates or whatever. you can get really into other activities as well. Maybe it's something outside of fitness too, but
Sure.
you pursue it and you aim to get better at it. And maybe you use a milestone goal as something to aim towards. But one of the coolest parts about pursuing anything, whether it's bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding, or another activity or another field, is we can all kind of get a sense of camaraderie in that we're all getting better as people in the process. So it's,
Yeah.
yes, we're getting more jacked as bodybuilders, we're getting leaner, we're putting on more tissue, we're getting stronger. But in addition to that, we're also developing things like very basic things. The first things that come to mind for a lot of people are things like discipline, work ethic. But not only that, there's like you develop body awareness when you're training, a certain level of attention to detail. So not only with like training technique, but also like with your nutrition and how your body reacts to different foods. So that's also body awareness. But you develop all these other skill sets, and maybe that helps you in um, with other skill sets as well. So those are all very direct, like body awareness, but also like learning how to learn. That was something I actually learned when I was in music. I was in a master class, and one of the professors, we were playing something for them, and one of the professors said, one of the best things that you're ever going to learn here in music school isn't all this music that you're learning or how to play the instrument. It's learning how to learn. And I think that's true, like with bodybuilding, is you're learning all these new things along the way, and your preps and how you feel and developing all these skills, but that might open you up to being able to learn other things too, outside of bodybuilding, or just learning how to become a better bodybuilder in general. But anyways, that's what that kind of makes me think of. And I love all those points. I think that's all amazing. It's
I
funny. One of
think,
the questions, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Finish your question.
It wasn't a question. I was just going to say it's funny because one of the questions I was going to ask you was, what made you decide to stay natural and not enhanced? And you elaborated on that, and that, you made a point of saying that, well, a lot of people do take the enhanced route a lot more than what you might expect. And that a lot of people might not realize that it's you're taking a big gamble in doing so. It's very expensive. You don't know how you're going to respond to it genetically. Like, you might not be a good responder to it. There's a lot of risk involved to doing that. And just some of the points that you made about the natural route versus the enhanced route, I was actually going to ask you that, so you kind of beat me to it. And I'm glad that you kind of elaborated on some of those points. I think they're all really important to bring up. What was it you were going to say before I cut you off there?
Oh, I was gonna say that in the world of bodybuilding, I find that ultimately the competition becomes a celebration of all the hard work that we've put in the off season to build all these tissues and all of our sacrifices, right? To be spontaneous, to not be able to be as spontaneous in life, right? As much as we try to create somewhat of a flexibility, right, to keep our sanity going, right, to almost cope with the reality that we know we cannot run away, right? There there's there's this love that comes out of it. There's this love and respect more than more than competition and who's the best, right? These rivalries. I think now, after the shows, I now understand why bodybuilders do the things they do on stage. And it's not for the reason why people think they do it, right? The famous Phil versus Kai, right? I know they have such enormous respect for each other, for their own strength and weaknesses. And it's so important for me to understand that as a coach, right? Just in case if I want to relate to a client that is going through something similar as well. So as a coach, you almost need to be crazy enough and experimental enough, like curious enough to try things that you may or may not believe it, just so you can say that you understand or you've experienced. Maybe you can't understand, but you've experienced something similar. And I think it's important that we have those curiosity as fitness professionals, because we will be the people who is going to inspire the next round of people to want to be a bodybuilder, let's say, right? And I do have goals of pursuing and trying to push for WNBF Pro, so that I will be able to travel to my home country in Taiwan and say, guess what? I want to see what you guys can bring, right? Now we share similar bloodline, right? Let's see who's got the biggest legs, right? Things like that that I find that is going to be hilarious in the background, in the backstage. Like I look forward to that day where I get to share with people that I turned pro in Canada, but I just want to make sure that I'm still the best from Taiwan. You know what I mean? And this, if there's somebody better, if there's somebody better, guess what? I'm gonna finish that show, Sam. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna become a better version of who I am. And that's all I can do. I cannot control if that other person decides to stay natural and keeps on kicking my butt or turn into a enhanced bodybuilder, but that's not up to me, right? And ultimately, that is why I'm doing this. And so with that mindset, I honestly I honestly am so excited. But as Cliff had always shared with me, I'm that type of athlete that, just needs to relax, take a deep breath, and go through the motion. So, this type of relationship that you get to build with your coach is truly unique. It's like my relationship with my barber. Like these people serves a very unique purpose in their life. Like it will involve conversation that you never talk about with your significant others, with your parents. Like those things are so personal, especially the closer you get to prep, the amount of like TMI information that you start
Oh
hitting
yeah.
your coach with.
Yeah, start talking about like bowel
Oh my
movements and all sorts
God.
of fun stuff. It's like ain't nobody else
Uh,
gonna hear about that. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's just, genuinely reflecting through this conversation that we've had to almost walk it through again how my experience was. And I must say, this has been something that's, even as we walk through it and having you asking all the great questions, that allows me to really bring myself back to the environment that we were all in. I guess I'm glad. I'm glad that, like, these experiences had brought guys like yourself, guys like Phil, guys like Adam, guys, like great guys from different places on, you know, this vast land, that all share this common desire to be the most muscular and shredded person. And it's such a cool concept, because I'll share that with you and people listening, is that oftentimes I get asked, right? I get asked a lot, oh, like you spend so much time in the gym, right? Like, how do you hang out with your friends? And my question to that has always been, well, my friends comes to the gym, right? So we hang out when we're working out. Like working out is a non-negotiable. So you could be busy, right? You could have no time for me and you to talk, but let's work out. Like we're always working out. And through time, I believe these are the friendships that you get to, I guess, nurture more, simply because there's more repetition, right? You have more encounters, and when there's a power in uniting people that have mutual interests, that is so underrated in today's, I guess, social, communal, or even romantic encounters, right? I think that's what we're lacking. Just common interests. Look for something to do and go and do it. It doesn't have to be bodybuilding, but if it is, it's pretty damn cool. But if it isn't, there's nothing wrong with that as well. Yeah.
That's such an awesome message. I love it. Before we close off here, I want to know, so 2026, you're planning, that's competition, that's when it, or that's what your planned season is going to be. Do you have an idea of which shows you're going to be aiming for, or are you going to kind of are you just kind of setting 2026 and you'll pick as you go?
So I always have desire. Excuse me. I always have desire. So like an initial plan A, let's say. So in the perfect world, I would want to do the uh, Toronto Natural, which is with NPC,
Yep.
uh, just to scope out the scene. That's number one. Number two, I also want to do a test show to see how I peak and how I reverse out of that show. Like the performance doesn't even matter. Like I feel like I will obviously go with Cliff's plan in terms of how long he um he sees my building off season extends to before we make that final call. But if everything goes well, I want to do the Toronto Natural and then give myself enough time to do a proper, almost like a reverse, and then back into my prep stage, and then go back again and do WMBF. So
Love it.
there will be a solid, I want to say 2 months in between where I'll be able to do a reverse and then get back and dig deeper. Almost like a refeed. Let's not call it a reverse. It's just a refeed and then get back into digging more. Um, I do have my eyesight set at this local show. It's King Kong Classic. It's one of the biggest
Love it.
natural competition here in the Greater Toronto area,
Yep.
and I just want to go there, and I just want to. I don't know what I'm looking for. I just want to be there and experience the show and the organizer as a competition participant. Does that make sense? Like, I just want to
I
go
love it.
there and be a competitor because I feel like these shows that I've gone as fans, I think the shows' production and promotion and all the things that they're doing is so great. Like, I look forward to being a part of that. And um, obviously, circumstances could change, but if at any given point I feel like this is really starting to dread or I'm starting to notice red flags that I tend to ignore in the past, right? And one thing was like when I opened YouTube and all I could see was mukbangs and eating challenges. Like that was my first sign, right? And it did not happen for my first prep, but it started to happen drastically and it took over my algorithm within that 3 weeks. Every
Yep.
day, right? Every day. And that's when I realized, oh my God, I gone a little too extreme, right? And so this time, uh, I guess just being more at peace with myself, right? Stop being so critical, right? And these are the things I think it's it's good to go in there with with very specific goals and improvement that is measurable that you want to kind of like set yourself out to accomplish that is not in the power of or the hands of others, right? Like that's why I always say, with the placings, it's in the hands of the judge, right? We don't question that. We question the feedback they give us, right? What is it that is preventing me from being a better version of myself, right? And I'm going to go back and do that, right? So this time is just more so coming out of the competition, right? And in terms of going in the competition, I strive to repeat or, you know, improve upon what I had going on the last time around, because instead of spending the first initial, I want to say 6 weeks of skill acquisition, this time we can go in and, you know, get straight to work, you know, and there's already this team chemistry that me and Cliff got going on. And I can't say that I'm always going to stick it out with Cliff in terms of coaching, because a part of me had always thought, you know, I love this team, you know, environment, and one of Cliff's personal client, Leroy, organizer for WNBF Ontario, he's got a great team going on right now with natural bodybuilding groups, and I really, really enjoy their energy and their local. So I'll do a little bit more work, but as a bodybuilder, I think it's also your ability to be open-minded, right? To be able to say, if I'm not sure, I'm going to try it out, right? And having that relationship with your coach where you're communicating everything so that they understand what it is that they can help you with and make appropriate recommendations, right? It's like how I would refer a client that is injured to go to appropriate physio, right? Because at the end of the day, we can only take on so many clients, right? And the most responsible thing and the most professional thing a coach can do is to make the right referrals so that it benefits your client, so that it benefits the coach that you're referring it to, and at the end of the day, benefiting you as a result of your own reputation. And if we can come to that as a community in the fitness industry standards, we will be able to do such a better job at setting prices and expectations on seeing the values of these trainings, right? Not just through their social media popularity, but the results and the knowledge and the guidance that they provide, right? Let's actually celebrate coaches that spend time with their clients, right? Let's celebrate all the good things that bodybuilding in general has given to us, right? On a individual and communal levels, right? Let's just appreciate these small things and let the rest do the rest, right? If people see it and they feel driven, they feel pulled into this environment, then all we can do is welcome them, right? So to circle back all the way back to our initial discussion around bodybuilding, I genuinely believe that in order for us to get more people in it, we first need to make sure that all the people that are in it because we love it, right? Because nothing worse than going to a lecture when the professor is reading off of the projection slides. Nothing worse than going to a group fitness classes when the instructor is not doing the same exercise that you guys are doing. All right. So in order for us to foster this community, I think it starts off with everyone's own subjective accountability, right? To make sure that as intimidating as we may appear when we're training, right? We go that extra mile when we identify someone who's new inside the gym, who's confused, who doesn't know how to use a machine, to go a little bit out of our ways, right? To really help jumpstart somebody's journey with fitness. And you never know how far this is going to carry, because I'm proud to say that since I became a fitness professional in 2016, I've already had more than a handful of clients who've decided to become trainers themselves, to help other people achieve the physique that they want, right? And nothing better. And I 100% agree with, not focusing on helping 100% of the people that comes to me, right? But making a lasting impact, net positive on people who's interacted with me. And if I get to do that to one person within 100 clients that I've trained, I take that as a success. And that's what keeps me going in this industry. It
I love it.
genuinely is.
I think that's so important, and there's so many great points in there. I can speak from my own experience too, that when I first started lifting, there was a guy that was working out at the same time at me at my local gym. It was a super small hole in the wall gym in a small town, like a gritty old bodybuilding gym. And I was training at like 5 in the morning before high school started. I was the only like young kid there. And there's a guy there that would train around the same time. I think he must have worked around the industrial park close by. Like he had a tough job, I would imagine, very physically demanding one. He was also really, really jacked and strong.
Mm.
And he was so nice to me. Like, I don't know why he just decided to be like so nice to me, but he's super nice to me. He would give me a lot of positive reinforcement, just, every once in a while, throw an offshoot compliment, like I'm doing a good job, give me some advice, but he wasn't very pushy about it. It was like, he would ask me if I could, if it was okay, if he gave me a tip here and there. And he had a really profound impact on me when I first started lifting, because he made the gym something that I could feel comfortable about, because I knew there's this big jack dude there that like was kind of nice to me and was encouraging and would give me some tips. He gave me, I don't know if you have ever read through this, the Arnold Schwarzenegger New Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding, that OG bodybuilding book. He gave me his copy. It was like falling apart. Like it must have been in his family or something, but he just gave it to me, and that had a really big impact on me. So yeah, and he wasn't even a coach. He was just like a nice job. So you can imagine how much impact a coach would be able to have. Someone that's sole purpose, more or less, is to give that kind of direct help to their clients. And yeah, I love that. And my hope is very, very similar in a world where in the past 10 years in the fitness industry, the best marketers have been winning. So like you didn't necessarily have to be a good coach. You kind of have to be a good marketer, and that's that, and be flashy. Like you mentioned earlier, 30 days, 60-day cuts, a secret hack or trick. That's what it takes. That's what you could be doing to get really great results really fast. The problem with that is, I mean, it's very appealing to people, but the problem is I think it sets the stage for unrealistic expectations, which might have a very negative impact on people's fitness journeys and relationship with fitness in general. And I think you presented the solution to that problem really well, which is having people that are in the fitness industry, like Cliff, like you, who are very passionate about what they do, who are truly knowledgeable and skilled, who genuinely want to help people, and who focus more on those things, perhaps, rather than, as you noted earlier, like who has the most followers. I think if there's more people like that in the industry, that's how you make the industry better, and how we could make it better for people that are trying to get into fitness in general, whether it's natural bodybuilding or anything else. So, and yeah, I love this. So many amazing points in there. The last question I have for you as we close off, and I know we spent a good time chatting. I've loved this. Um,
There's
something that I
definitely
didn't.
more coming.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. Something I want to ask you to make sure everyone knows before we close off here, because I haven't actually asked you this in our conversation, and you've alluded to the answer to this, but I want everyone to know, outside of being a natural bodybuilder and really into fitness, very passionate about this stuff and self-betterment in general, what exactly do you do? You alluded to, you coach people and you have clients, but can you let everyone know exactly what you do, and if there is anyone that uh, m- might take an interest in potentially working with you. I'm not sure how open you are in taking new clients, because it is kind of I know what you do, because we've already talked, but um, if you are taking on clients, if that's how it works, if you want to let everyone know where to find you, how to get a hold of you, please do. And I'll also go ahead and I'll include some links for you in the description below if that's appropriate. But go ahead and let everyone know what you do.
All right, sounds good. So, I'm currently working as the fitness program specialist at University of Toronto. So, I train, I hire, and I mentor group fitness instructors and personal trainers alike. So, the purpose of my job is to educate and promote physical activities to all the students and faculty and staff around overall balance. Okay. My personal interest of bodybuilding comes from the era of mass monsters, I must say. I love the Ronnie Coleman, I love the Jay Cutler, the these guys that push the sport to a new limit. But I also have appreciation for any bodybuilding, right? For all categories, because I feel like the commitment and the dedication that you put into your training program differs depending on what it is that you're training for. And I know the men's physique guys, they take a lot of heat, right? For the not training legs as hard part. But at the end of the day, right, it's your body, right? Whatever you see as your best representation or package that you want to bring to the table, I think it's up to you as a coach, as a trainer. I'm always open to any special projects, right? Or any client inquiries. And so the best way to reach me is through Instagram. My name is Supreme. So it's HSUPPREME, Supreme. Okay. My last name is HSU. So, that'll make it easy for me and for everybody else. I mainly focuses more on, work life health balance, right? I focus a lot of what I do is focusing on mind and body. So before we take you onto the gym floor and actually train you, we are figuring out the why, right? What is it that you're trying to gain from this experience? Is it confidence? Is it physical ability? Is it mobility? Like, what is it that that you aim to achieve or aim to acquire through my service? That's what I'm interested in. And however way I or my resources can help you out with, we will go from there. So I tend to pick my clients more selectively because I've been in this industry long enough to relate to what some people may refer to as, that's the money I don't want to earn. When a coach and a client does not, you know, match well together, a lot of times you are not only doing yourself a disservice by not servicing the client all of its true values, you're also taking a not so professional approach when you're dealing with your clients, right? When a trainer starts to, look forward to the client not showing up to the session, right? For instance, we run through that so frequently, especially when it comes to new trainers, right? Learning when to let go. So for me, I am never, I guess, actively advertising, but I'm always looking forward to new interesting projects. And I'm currently working on the adaptive training certificates because I also want to branch out to people with accessibility needs, right? The people that I've witnessed through wheelchair bodybuilding and how inspiring some of these people's stories have been, right? That makes me and inspires me want to branch out to service more of I guess, niche communities that can also benefit from all the things that we sometimes take for granted ourselves, right? So there's that. That's my ads.
Amazing. Well, for anyone who's listening, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna drop your Instagram handle in the description below. So it's H Supreme, right? I'll get the. I'll make sure I
Yeah,
get the spelling right and everything. So yeah, if you're interested, then reach out to Steven. The link will be there for you. I can also attest to he knows his stuff. I've seen him in person. We both competed at the WMBF Ontario. He was insanely jacked and shredded. There's no question about that. And really, to get there, to get to that stage, you kind of have to know a thing or two about lifting weights and fitness. So you have my full endorsement. Um, Anyways, Stephen, I've really enjoyed the conversation. We're gonna have to keep talking. There's more questions that kept popping into my head, and we had to keep moving on, keep going with the flow of the conversation. But
definitely.
I definitely have more that I would love to talk to you about. So we'll have to do another one. I want to know more about how your 2026 season goes and the prep itself, and when you do compete and how it goes afterwards. Of course, I'll be competing in 2026 too, so we can talk more about that.
I think it'll be
Um,
fun to see how our faces will transform.
oh yeah,
Starting from
the
now
skull
full of
face.
life, starting from now full of life to a point where like there will literally be no emotion as we speak.
Yeah, yeah. We'll turn into like Vulcans from Star Trek or something, in
That would be
combination
it.
with like our eyes getting shallower and our
Yep,
cheekbones like
yep.
sinking in. Yeah, good times. I mean, it sounds terrible, but we love it. That's why we do it, right?
Looking
Anyways,
forward
man.
towards it. Always
Me
a
too,
pleasure,
man.
Sam. Good catching up. Looking forward to more.
Likewise.